You know, when you hear the word genius, there's probably one face that pops into your head, right? Wild hair, that sparkle in his eye, Albert Einstein. But that image, that icon we all know, it's really just the cover of a much deeper, much more complicated book. So today, we're going to turn the page and really get to know the man behind the myth.
And there he is, the face we all recognize. This is Einstein the legend, the guy whose name literally became shorthand for being incredibly smart. He just looks like he knows all the universe's secrets, and honestly, in a lot of ways, he really did. But what if I told you that the road to becoming this guy wasn't some straight shot to the top? What if the story of the 20th century's greatest mind is actually packed with failure, with rejection, and even a profound sense of being alone? Well, that's the real story we're getting into today.
So, our story doesn't start where you'd expect, like a fancy university lab. Nope, it starts in a much more ordinary place, a patent office. And it's right there that a young man, who really didn't show many early signs of being a legend, quietly got to work starting a revolution.
Okay, this is what I find so fascinating because it just shatters that whole idea of effortless genius. Get this. His parents were actually worried he had a learning disability because he took so long to start talking. He absolutely hated the rigid, boring way they taught things at his school. And, believe it or not, he even failed the general knowledge part of his university entrance exam the first time he took it.
I mean, look at this kid. This is the boy who would grow up to completely rewrite the laws of physics. It's just an amazing reminder that huge potential doesn't always scream and shout. Sometimes it starts out quiet, with a little curiosity and a big frustration with the way things are. And even after he finally got his degree from a top university, the struggle was far from over. For 2 whole years, he was applying for teaching jobs, and every single school turned him down. Think about that. The future father of relativity was basically unemployed and totally adrift in the academic world. So what do you do when the world of academia slams the door in your face? Well, if you're Albert Einstein, you go get a job as a patent clerk. It was not glamorous at all. His official title was Technical Expert Third Class. But nobody knew that this humble office was about to become the cradle for a massive scientific revolution. And this slide just perfectly captures the double life he was living. By day, his job was to look at blueprints for things like gravel sorters and typewriters. But in his head, he was doing these incredible thought experiments, imagining what it would be like to ride on a beam of light, thinking about the very fabric of space and time. You know, that day job, forcing him to think about practical things, might have been the secret ingredient for his amazing theoretical breakthroughs. And then, while he was still just a patent clerk, something absolutely incredible happened. In one single year, 1905, this totally unknown guy published 4 papers that basically ripped up the old physics textbooks and changed everything. It's now famously known as his annus mirabilis, his miracle year. The amount he accomplished it's staggering. In just a few months, he lays the groundwork for quantum theory. Then he offers the first real proof that atoms actually exist. Then he completely redefines space and time with special relativity. And as if that wasn't enough, in a little note at the end of that paper, he casually drops one of the most important ideas in all of science, the link between mass and energy. And there it is, the most famous equation in the world. Just 5 little characters that explain a fundamental truth of our universe. That mass isn't just stuff. It's an incredibly concentrated form of energy. A discovery that would eventually unlock the power of the atom itself. But oh no, he wasn't done yet. That miracle year, that was just the warm-up act. His special theory of relativity was amazing, but it had a hole in it. It didn't explain gravity. So he aimed his brain at the biggest force in the cosmos. You see, for more than 200 years, everyone just accepted Isaac Newton's idea of gravity, that it's this invisible force pulling things together. Einstein's idea was way more radical. He said there is no force. Imagine you put a bowling ball on a trampoline. It sinks down, right? It creates a curve. Now, if you roll a marble nearby, it's going to follow that curve. That's how Einstein saw gravity. Huge things like the sun literally bend the fabric of space and time, and planets are just rolling along those curves. It sounded like something out of science fiction, but he came up with a way to test it. He said if space is curved, then the light from a distant star should bend when it passes by the sun. So during a solar eclipse in 1919, astronomers looked, they measured, and he was right. The very next day, headlines around the world, just like this one, were screaming that Newton was out
and Einstein was in. He became an international superstar overnight.
His fame was it was on a whole different level from anything science had ever seen. He was a celebrity, like a movie star. This quote from his friend, the great Charlie Chaplin, just nails it. People were cheering for him because he was famous for being so brilliant that nobody could understand him. But that celebrity, combined with the fact that he was Jewish, was about to put him in serious danger. Because back in his home country of Germany, the world was taking a very, very dark turn. And just like that, his whole world was turned upside down. One minute, he's here, celebrated as one of the greatest minds in Berlin. The next, as Hitler comes to power, his life is at risk. He ends up here, hiding out in a little cottage in England, protected by bodyguards with shotguns. The change is just unbelievable. And the threat was very, very real. The Nazis called his theories Jewish physics. His books were some of the first to be thrown onto their bonfires. A German magazine actually published his picture in a gallery of enemies of the state with the absolutely chilling caption, "Not yet hanged." They even put a bounty on his head. He happened to be visiting the US in 1933 when he found out he could never go back home. He immediately renounced his German citizenship and became a refugee. And in this letter to a friend, you can just feel his shock and his pain. This was his country, a center of science and culture, and now it was being swallowed by a hatred that even a mind like his couldn't comprehend. Einstein found a new home and safety in America at Princeton. But his final decades were actually marked by this deep intellectual loneliness. He set off on this final quest that put him completely at odds with the very field of physics he had helped to create. And this famous quote really gets to the heart of the problem. You see, the new field of quantum mechanics, which he'd helped start, was suggesting that on a tiny, subatomic level, the universe is all about chance and probability. Einstein hated that idea. He believed in an orderly universe that followed predictable rules. He famously insisted, God does not play dice. So he spent the last 30 years of his life searching for what he called a unified field theory, one beautiful master equation that could explain all the forces of nature, without any of that quantum randomness. But while the rest of the physics world charged ahead, he worked mostly alone, a revolutionary who'd been left behind by his own revolution. And yet, even with that final unfinished quest, his legacy is just immense. When the 20th century was drawing to a close, Time magazine had to pick its person of the century. They didn't pick a president or a general. They picked him, the patent clerk who dared to dream about riding on a beam of light. So, in the end, I think this is the question we're left with. We remember him for E equals mc squared, for relativity, for the answers that literally changed our world. But maybe, just maybe, his real legacy wasn't just the answers he gave us, but his unstoppable curiosity, his courage to ask the questions that nobody else even thought to ask. Makes you wonder, doesn't it?